The mid to late 2000s is what some would consider the rise of anti-hero lead protagonists, being highlighted by shows like The Sopranos, The Shield, and eventually Breaking Bad. Yet one show would surprisingly end up marking itself as a pop culture phenomenon in the midst of the greats. At the time, it was a giant leap of faith. After all, the lead protagonist is a serial killer, and we all tend to want to follow the story of a morally good person. However, within a single episode, Dexter would introduce one of the most complex moral dilemmas in TV history, walking a fine line between morality and monstrosity. The pilot's refreshing tone and unique dialogue is what catapulted into greatness, and in today's video, we're going to be analyzing the pure genius behind Dexter's first episode. The episode begins with our lead protagonist, Dexter, driving down Miami's party scene at night, introducing to us for the first time his famous inner monologue. We cut to a boys' church singing choir with Dexter stalking from a distance, symbolizing that he's the devil in the details. The man who is in charge of the boys' choir walks to his car unknowing that he's about to introduce us to the dark passenger. As he gets in his car, there's this red light that flashes beside him. The color red in particular is what sets the tone for the first few minutes of the show, foreshadowing our protagonist's keen liking towards blood. In an instant, Dexter comes up from behind with a string, taking the man hostage. This is especially alarming due to the fact that Dexter is so calm and seems as if he's already done this kind of thing countless times. We arrive at an almost grave-like location where he begins to question the man viciously. It's then revealed that the church choir organizer is responsible for the killing of young innocent boys that were in the choir. For the first time on screen, he quickly doses him up with some M99 and places him in a neatly wrapped plastic from head to toe. He slices his cheek and collects a blood sample and then proceeds to disturbingly cut him up. We quickly cut to the next day where Dexter formally introduces himself on his boat. We learn that he thinks he doesn't have any real human emotions and that he had two adoptive parents who are deceased whom he didn't kill. The atmosphere is set with this warm color tone reflecting the actual weather in Miami, Florida. Dexter is then called onto a crime scene where we are introduced to his sister Deborah. It's described that she is a police officer and that Dexter is a forensic blood spatter analyst for the Miami Metro Police Department. It's shown that he has a strong feeling for Deborah as his sister and that she is a very important component to his life. Dexter walks onto the forensic site where he is introduced to Masuka and Angel Batista. Masuka is a fellow forensic investigator and Batista is a detective. The tarp gets pulled back and we are shown this gruesome shot of different body parts cut into pieces with no blood. Dexter is shocked by this and leaves the scene partially due to the fact that he is needed for blood spatter analysis. Back at the station, we see the first glimpse of Dexter attempting to blend in with society as he hands out donuts to everyone. He goes to pick up a file from Camilla, who also works for the police department and was good friends with Harry, his adoptive father, back in the day. At his desk, he is confronted aggressively by none other than James Dokes, who is another fellow detective.
You give me the creeps, you know that, Dexter?
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that. Okay.
They exchange an almost cartoonish conversation where it is explained that Dokes isn't too fond of Dexter, hinting at a future rivalry. After displaying Dexter's forensic skills of being able to piece a story simply from blood spatter, stalks his next kill, Jamie Jaworski, who he believes is responsible for the death of Mrs. Jane Saunders. He explains that Jamie got arrested, but that his lawyers got him off on a faulty search warrant. Dexter secretly breaks into his house, searching for potential clues that point towards Jaworski being the killer. He obtains the necessary proof he needed to 100% know he was in fact the killer. Later that night, we are introduced to Rita, someone Dexter has been seeing for a little while now. We learn that Rita is almost as broken as he is due to her violent ex-partner. She has two kids, Cody and Aster, who both very much enjoy Dexter's company. They go out on their date where Dexter notices police lights close by. He brings Rita towards the scene before involving himself into the incident location. Once again, it's another body cut up into pieces with no blood to be seen whatsoever. He brings Rita home where they have a rather awkward situation and then goes home to analyze the evidence pointing to his next victim. We get a flashback showing us that Harry Morgan is responsible for Dexter's moral code of killing only those who deserve it, like killers who manage to slip through the legal system. The next day, Dexter and his sister exchange lunch where they discuss the mysterious elements of these recent killings. They come up with a theory surrounding the body parts being previously kept frozen to keep them well intact due to cell crystallization, hinting that the killer might be using some sort of mobile ice refrigerator. Dexter advises Deborah to bring up this theory during the Miami Metro Police Department meeting. Maria LaGuardia, who is the lieutenant, shuts Deborah's idea down in an embarrassing way. We cut to Maria, Dexter, and Dose all discussing another killing where we once again get to see Dexter's forensic skills as he proves Dokes wrong.
I'm watching you, mother.
Later that night, Dexter follows Jaworski to a construction site where he had been stealing copper plumbing for days on end. He M99s him and wraps him neatly in plastic once again on a table. He quickly takes care of business as Rita calls him to meet up following last night's awkward event. Dexter, now in his car, is on his way to Rita's when all of a sudden he sees an ice truck driving by him suspiciously at night. He follows this truck all over town until they both reach a dead end. The truck turning around blinds him with his lights, unable to capture his face. He drives directly towards Dexter before quickly turning away, dropping a head on his car. Dexter, stunned by this, calls Miami Metro Police and tells them what he happened to see. He explains to Maria his story and we subtly see her flirting with Dexter, something that kind of vanishes away and is never addressed. After making a quick stop at Rita's and having another awkward situation, he goes back to his apartment where he sees an unusual Barbie head stuck to his fridge door. He isn't mad or concerned by this, but rather intrigued and opens the fridge door to a Barbie doll's body in pieces wrapped exactly the same way as the other killings were. He gets the feeling that this person is subtly asking to play around with Dexter, and without hesitation, Dexter agrees, ending the episode. Now, although this episode isn't one of the highest rated ones among others like The Getaway and Born Free, I find it to be one of the most unique and memorable episodes in the entire series. Rewatching this episode, I felt as if I was thrusted back into the mid-2000s, even though I wasn't really a part of them. Its color tone is an essential part of its uniqueness as a show and is something that can't really be felt by any other. By far, an aspect that wholeheartedly carried the introduction was Dexter's inner monologue. His internal dialogue allows us to grasp a keen insight into his complex psyche and as well allows for a more realistic tone of the show. His voice provides the audience with a guide for his otherwise disturbing acts. Just imagine how strange it would be if he had no internal dialogue. We would be completely lost with why he does certain things and when he's actually faking human emotions with others. It also allows for audiences to relate to Dexter due to the main theme of him feeling like an outsider trying to fit in. As humans, we go through our day-to-day experience thousands of inside thoughts about how we act or what others think of us. This internal monologue is something most of us have without even realizing and is what amplifies the pilot's hook even more. When I was first suggested to watch Dexter, I, like many, was not too interested, thinking that the main character was a psycho serial killer. But as I began the first episode, I was totally blown away by my previous misconception of what I thought the show was. And this is something it had to face when it aired all the way back in 2006. It was very risky for the studio to invest so much into something that could totally backfire, but somehow the first episode was able to show audiences the slightest amount of humanity in regards to Dexter, which allowed for a satisfying and intriguing feeling towards its end. And this is something many fans also feel towards the pilot, with some stating that the pilot is one of the best episodes of TV ever, not just of Dexter. It perfectly sets the tone of the show and you finish the episode wanting to see the next one. There's no stick with it until episode XYZ and then it gets really good. It starts good, instant hook, perfectly encapsulating why it is a masterclass first episode for a TV show many would fall uninterested for if it weren't for its dramatic style and uniqueness. Despite being released nearly 2 decades ago, it still lives up in TV history as one of the best first episodes to a television series. Its introduction to a character most people would dislike changed the minds of many by the end and created a timeless classic that will live on for generations to come. If you enjoyed this video, I would greatly appreciate it if you liked and subscribed, and as well let me know your thoughts below in the comments. Thanks for watching and I will see you all next time.